On the 11th of April 2001, tragedy struck in Ellis Park, Johannesburg, taking a number of innocent lives in what would become a completely avoidable disaster. The autumn weather is calm and cool. Thousands of fans gather for what is said to be a landmark game of soccer, a match between the Kaizer Chiefs and the Orlando Pirates. Before 3 p.m., the pre-match begins. A massive crowd has already started arriving and pouring into the stadium. The Ellis Park Stadium has a capacity of just over 60,000 people. While it's claimed that many of the people who have arrived purchased tickets for the events, thousands of others have not. Still, the mood is jovial, and everyone is ready to watch the match, root for their favorite team, and maybe even enjoy a celebration after. However, a dark cloud was looming over them. Instead of just the capacity of 60,000 people arriving at the stadium, there was much more, with some estimates even suggesting that an additional 30,000 people had shown up. This was the perfect recipe for disaster, and the stage was set for a day they would never forget. As the kickoff began, the crowd roared to life. The fans on the inside were enjoying the game, and while it's unknown whether they noticed how crowded the stadium was or not, the match still continued as they waited for their favorite teams to score a goal. That's just what happened. 15 minutes in, the first goal was scored by Kaizer Chiefs. The crowds began to scream, and thousands of people outside the stadium, desperate to see what happened, tried to force their way in. Just 2 minutes later, the Orlando Pirates responded with their own goal, evening the score and sending fans into a roar once again. This prompted more people, still on the outside, to try and push their way into the stadium. People became packed together, body against body, with no idea what was going on or how to relieve the pressure being pushed on them. I can only imagine at this point that the air became thin, and fans enjoying the game started to realize that something was terribly wrong. A phenomenon known as crowd crush was occurring, which is when the immense pressure of people pushing against one another in a tight space becomes an actual physical force. While fans in the stadium were being crushed, to those on the field, the situation was not immediately apparent. Instead, after the second goal, the match continued for approximately 17 minutes. While players and officials did notice disturbances, they didn't notice the bodies of fans being pushed against seats, gates, and walls. Entrances, which had previously allowed people to enter and leave freely, had now become choke points, with hundreds or even thousands of people trying to enter and leave through them at the exact same time. People were being suffocated, while some tried to still force their way in or out of the stadium, and others continued to enjoy the match. Slowly but surely, people gasping for air, trying not to get injured, and trying to save their own lives, created a stampede. While the players continued the game, the bodies of the dead began to accumulate, lost in the crowds. Finally, 34 minutes after the game officially began, the severity of the situation had become apparent, and the game was stopped. Those who were fortunate enough to survive the situation fled the stadium. Emergency personnel were immediately called in and started working on saving as many of the injured as they could. The field, which just moments before was being used for a jovial game of soccer between two popular teams, had now become a makeshift morgue. Bodies were being picked up from the stadium and laid on the grounds. First one, then 5, then 20, until the total number of people who lost their lives were now laying on the same field they had come to watch their favorite teams play on. A total number of 43 people had lost their lives, and 158 people were injured. The roads around the stadium had become heavily congested, with more emergency services trying to make their way in, along with the families of some of the fans who attended, desperate to find their loved ones. There was a lack of clear communication and travel paths, making rescue attempts very disorganized. The aftermath of the Ellis Park Stadium disaster brought grief and lawsuits. A number of people were brought to court, however, no one was ever found guilty. Families also made attempts to sue the teams playing that day, with a settlement occurring out of court. Now, outside Ellis Park Stadium, a permanent memorial stands. A tribute holding the names of all 43 victims, reminding us of how many lives can be taken because of negligence.